Hey.
Hello! We're back. It's Tuesday. It's new comic preview. We're going to talk about comic books that are coming out tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wednesday used to be my favorite day of the week because that was New Comic Book Day. But now that I work in a comic book store, Tuesday has become my favorite day of the week
Yeah.
because I get them a day early.
You get to see everything
Get
as
to-
it's coming
to
out.
scope it out.
Sweet. Well, let's get into
So
it, man.
let's just jump right into it.
What do we got?
What
do we got?
I have a mix of stuff we're going to talk about. First couple of books we're going to talk about, I'm just going to briefly go over some books we've talked about in previous episodes. Which, by the way, can I just say how almost weird it is that we've been doing this now for just enough weeks that we have books that are repeating.
Yeah.
I
Like,
kind of
we're
didn't.
getting the whole series.
Hey,
Keystone.
hey, all right. I kind of didn't think we would get this far,
Yeah,
but
no, I'm all
here
about
we are.
consistency, baby. That's what we do. You build it, they will come.
Yes. All right. Well, let's quickly talk about Battle Chasers.
Battle Chasers. Hey, Serena.
Howdy. I don't have much to say about this issue. I just want to point out I was so shocked to see this on the stands 1 month after the previous issue came out. Because if you recall,
That glare's
that
crazy.
glare,
there you go.
yeah.
There you go.
If you recall, there was a 23-year gap between issues 9 and 10.
Yeah.
And so it just felt weird to me to only wait a month for the next issue
Right.
and not another 23 years.
Yeah. It feels like you didn't really work for it.
Exactly, yeah. So it's if you like Battle Chasers, I'm sure you will like this. It just kind of continues the story. Not a whole lot else I can say about it. Looks pretty nice. Again, I think we talked last time. The biggest thing with this book is that the creator Joe Mad isn't doing the art for the new issues, and his art was the main appeal of the old series. But I think that the new artist Ludo is pretty good. Does a pretty good job of kind of capturing that feeling. And we're just gonna monkey with some of these lights here. Yeah, here we go.
There we
But yeah, nice, solid fantasy action. This whole issue is basically one giant fight scene between a monster and
Sweet.
a guy with a giant sword. Pretty cool. All right,
Battle Chasers.
Battle Chasers.
Why are they always chasing battles?
You know what? What else are you gonna do?
See,
What
now
else?
that's in the frame.
So, another issue.
Serena says she needs to distract her brain and disassociate.
Oh, nice. Well, we can do
That's
that.
a good way. Reading comics is a good way to disassociate.
You could just listen to me blather on about comics. That's ASMR for some people.
Yes, yeah. Put you to sleep.
I will drone on and on and on and on. So new number one coming out tomorrow.
Big
This
Game.
Big Game by Mark Miller and Pepe Larraz.
Pepe Larraz.
Pepe Larraz is an awesome artist.
I like his name.
So this is kind of a big deal, kind of. It's called Big Game, and this is Mark Miller's new series that's tying together a lot of his previous series. Because Mark Miller is a guy who, the way he operates, he doesn't do long-form series. He's famous for only doing like 6 or 12 issues, and that's it. He gets in and he gets out. He knows that he can't keep it going for too long. He likes to just keep the stories pretty straight and simple. So I can't blame him for that. And so this issue, he's done multiple series over the last several decades of just different superhero things, and this issue ties them all together. So a few weeks ago, I think, or at least on 1 or 2 episodes, I may have talked about his recent series, The Ambassadors.
Yeah,
So this,
we looked at that a little bit.
yeah, we did. So this ties that in with some other books that he's done, notably this book called Nemesis, which is a superhero book about a supervillain. So this is a villain that's going to be in it. And then also he...
Where do you think they get their suits made?
Well, it depends on...
Do they ever cover that in the book? Like, he shows up and he's got this costume, like look at that.
Yeah.
That's pretty serious.
Pretty serious deal, all white.
But who... Where...
So Nemesis, I'm sure he probably had it custom tailored by his own personal tailor.
Sure.
I mean, surely you remember
someone in
the movie The Incredibles. Like they have like a whole scene. There's a whole like huge part of that movie is going to the woman that makes the super suits for him.
I just don't know if I've seen that movie.
What? No, that's fair.
I don't know if I've seen that movie.
It's fine.
I'm just trying to say things that'll get people riled up.
Well, you can't get me riled up, Dan. I've worked with you for too long. I'm
tried.
I'm hip to your ways.
Doing my best.
One other thing, so we see there's some of the Ambassadors characters in here. You can see there's one other one I wanted to point out, just because it's one that I know you will know. Kick-Ass.
Oh, it's Kick-Ass.
You remember that feller? That
Yeah.
feller from that movie?
He had a movie. He had
Yeah,
two movies.
he had 2 movies, in fact.
I didn't see the second one.
So this Kick-Ass is in this one too. So this is tying in all of his books. They make a reference to another recent book called Nightclub, which I can't remember if we talked about. It's about vampires. Some guys get turned into a vampire, and then they decided to use their vampire powers to be superheroes.
Oh.
So this
That
just
sounds cool.
this kind of ties it all together. The big idea, I actually kind of like the big idea here, which is in this universe, superheroes used to be a thing, but nobody remembers it. In 1986, the supervillains won, killed all the superheroes,
That's cool.
and then like brainwashed all of society to think that they don't exist. And so that's why Mark Miller's been doing all of these books. I think this was actually a big criticism I had of the Ambassadors, where it's like everything Miller does feels like it's an issue 1. Like it just feels like he's really good at writing an intro where you hit all the beats of like, oh, I'm discovering my powers and it's the real world, so the superheroes don't exist, and then it's all about how people react to that. And I feel like that's kind of a crutch for him, and it turns into kind of repetitive stories. Tells the same story over and over again. And that was my criticism of the Ambassadors. It was a 6-issue series where each issue felt like it was issue 1 of a different character discovering his powers. But now it's all coming together in this book, Big Game. Now it's like we're seeing it go somewhere. All these characters have developed their powers. They're going to square off against this villain, Nemesis, and these other new villains that are showing up that have they're kind of like the Illuminati, this secret society of villains that have just been in control of the world that you don't know about. So it's actually, when
It's not real at all.
Yeah, exactly. No, that doesn't really happen. No. So I was actually a little unsure if I was going to go into this, because I was a little like, my criticisms of the Ambassador stands, and I felt like I don't know if I want more of that, of just like. But now it's like we're moving beyond the setup, so I might actually be interested to follow this one. So I guess what I'm saying is, good job, Mark Miller. You did it.
You did it.
Coming up next,
Hey.
another book we talked about a little bit from a few weeks ago.
I like this because I'm a fan of good comics.
Yeah, that's what I hear, and that's what Robert Kirkman says.
Yeah, that's who you would tell you.
So this is Void Rivals number 2, and we talked about this when it came out, but there was a lot of little like hush suspense about it.
Secrecy.
A little bit of secrecy. The secret's out now, so I guess we can say.
Yeah.
The big deal about this is that recently, Robert Kirkman and his company Skybound, which is a part of Image Comics, they have acquired the rights to both Transformers and G.I. Joe. And so this book, Void Rivals, exists in his new, I don't know what you would call it, Hasbro Expanded Universe.
Cybertron-verse.
So the big spoiler in issue 1 of Void Wars was that there was a actual Transformer in it. I think Jetfire, one of them. But it was only for like 2 pages. He just like showed up at the end, and it was like supposed to be like a Shyamalan twist, where you're reading this book that's just some sci-fi comic book, and then there's like, oh, by the way, there's a Transformer in it.
Transformers, yeah.
And so.
Isn't the reprint of the number 1 has a Transformer on it?
Yes. So now that the cat's out of the bag, they're hyping it up. Like,
you can't get the cat back in the bag.
Or the Transformer.
You can't get the Transformer.
Transformers are out of the bag.
No, they're very hard to get into bags.
They're so big. But so
look at the rings.
I was a little disappointed in issue 1 because there was no big spoilers in it. I was. Well, I guess I should say.
You knew the spoiler.
I knew the spoiler. Like, okay, Transformers are in this. Now, I'd heard in the press that G.I. Joe are going to be in it too, in some way, even though this takes place far in the future.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, how's G.I. Joe going to get involved? Like, Transformers, I get. They're from outer space. They live a long time. You have Transformers exist across eons. But G.I. Joe, that thing is kind of set in like 1980, but here we are in 2023 and it's still around. So I don't really know how or if G.I. Joe. Maybe that's just speculation. But there's no. I was half expecting to see some G.I. Joe thing in this, and it wasn't there. In the second issue, it wasn't there. There wasn't even any Transformers stuff. He pretty much just went right into his story that he's doing for Void Wars, and it's fine.
It's a story.
It's a story.
Yeah.
It's Robert Kirkman doing Robert Kirkman. I will say that you definitely feel like he's trying to do something that is in line thematically with G.I. Joe and Transformers, where you basically just have, like, because if you remember, G.I. Joe and Transformers were both toys. and it was pretty much good guys and bad guys, and they fight each other all the time, and that's pretty much it. And so that's kind of what he's set up with Void Wars. There's these two rival races, I guess you could say, like on two different planets, and they're at war with each other for warring over resources. This issue just kind of expands on that backstory, kind of like a little bit more of like what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Do you think there's going to be action figure tie-in?
I that's actually what I was wondering.
Some toys.
So I was wondering about that because this is the reason it's so important to bring up that it ties in with G.I. Joe and Transformers, because G.I. Joe and Transformers were toys first. And that is why, I think, obviously that's why they're so successful. That's also why they look really interesting. Like, even if you don't care, like if you don't read G.I. Joe comics or watch Transformers movies, you can still just enjoy Transformers because they're cool toys.
Yeah.
Void Rivals definitely looks like something somebody came up with to be a story, and it doesn't have that visual flair that Transformers and G.I. Joe have. Like, there's a lot of like sameness to it. The two rival factions you can kind of see here, they're distinguished by the different
like a
gem that's on their forehead,
red and green and blue,
and that's pretty much it. Otherwise, they look kind of just like the same thing.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like the look of this is a little bland. I should specify 4 being something that's supposed to tie in with Transformers and G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
I expect something a little more colorful, and this
more pizzazz.
Yeah, a little bit more pizzazz.
It's got no zazz.
And this feels like it's like trying to be a bit more like hard science fiction, which I love good hard science fiction, but this lacks some of that colorful design work that
it does seem a bit like muted and sort of subdued.
Yeah, but I don't know. So that's I don't know the way I'm trying to remember what I say. There's like a thing about Kirkman, like it's exactly, if you're familiar with Kirkman, you will like this as much as you dislike it, which is. That's my opinion on Kirkman.
Yeah.
Like, he's not bad, he's good, but I also am just like not totally into it.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to.
It's okay.
I'm waiting to see. It's fine.
It's fine.
All the hype around Transformers and it being a thing, I was expecting a little bit more with this issue. Like let's ride that hype train. Like, you got Transformers, but it felt like it was just like a little teaser.
Yeah.
Like it was just like he stuck it in there just to like.
To get people to
to buy the book, and then it's like, oh, by the way, we're just gonna go off and do something else.
We're not gonna do anything else with the Transformers, but
yeah,
you're welcome.
So we'll see. We will see. I have more I could say, but I won't, because it's pretty much more of the same, which is how I feel about a lot of.
Oh, more of these.
So more of these. Talking about more of the same. So
Superman.
Last week,
Superman has nightmares.
Superman has nightmares. This is night terrors, in fact.
Oh.
So last week, I think we talked about Shazam Night Terrors, correct?
Yeah.
And I resent its existence.
Wow.
Because I will say, from the people that have talked about reading this series, they're enjoying it. And from what I've read, it's perfectly fine. Our coworker Abby, she's actually committed to buying all of them.
Wow.
And she's really into it. Abby likes horror comics, so she likes it. And I will say the setup is perfectly fine. There's a nightmare supervillain. He goes into superheroes' dreams and scares them. Yeah, it's Freddy Krueger style. And so this issue, I was prepared. I was prepared to not even read this because I just don't care.
Yeah.
But I gotta point out, it's drawn by Mr. Tom Riley. Now,
Tom Riley.
Absolutely love Tom Riley's art.
Yeah.
It actually completely got me. I was gonna just not read this, and I saw it was drawn by Tom Riley. And you will recall, Dan, Tom Riley, he's the artist from last year's Ant-Man series that I loved so much.
Yeah, you did love that.
Because a lot of that series is what coined your favorite catchphrase, an homage to Kirby.
Yeah.
Because so much of that series was an homage to Jack Kirby's Avengers era.
And does this continue that?
So this is it continues the feeling, not of Kirby though, because Kirby he did do some work at DC, but he's primarily remembered as a Marvel artist in the Avengers. Anyway, you don't need to know all that. So
it's good to know that.
So there is a little bit of styles going on here. I would say I'm not entirely sure what he's going for. It looks to me like it's more like a Darwin Cook art style, which Darwin Cook was famous for doing a retro art style. He did the series New Frontier. So like Darwin Cook has a general Silver Age style, and that's clearly what I think Tom Riley is going for, but it's not specifically the Silver Age Superman artist with Kurt Swan. So
what's the Silver Age?
Oh, Silver Age, if you're not familiar, I'm sorry. I'm so used to throwing around this lingo.
Throw it.
Pretty much, that's just comic books that were produced roughly from like the mid to late 50s up until about 1970. That's considered the Silver Age. That's like an era of comic book creation that's just notable for being different from like the 1940s to 1955. There was a notable change, that being the publication of Frederick Wertham's Seduction of the Innocent, and that's when the creation of the Comic Book Code of Authority was put into place.
Well, what age are we in now?
So I don't even know. We're just in the modern age. It lost all meaning as the decades went on, because they're like, oh, first decade is Golden Age, second decade Silver Age, third decade Bronze Age, fourth decade into the 80s, Copper Age, 90s Extreme Age, because everything was extreme in the 90s, and now we're just running on fumes at this point. It's just modern. Everything is modern. But anyway, so I digress. All I'm saying is he's definitely going for a retro 60s style in his art, which looks wonderful.
It seems a lot less complex.
Yes, I really love his art. But I should note what he's doing too is there's a few panels going here. There's the panels of Superman like in the real world where he's before everything happens, and then there's the panels inside his dream. And Tom Riley definitely is using a different art style for each one. So, like, what happens is Superman gets taken over. You can see in this panel here, where he like falls asleep under the spell of the supervillain, the Dreamweaver, and he's exactly
whatever he's called,
and he's falling. So this whole dream is taking place over the span of Superman falling as he's come under the spell of this villain. So it's really nicely done. And you can kind of see like things that are happening in the dream coincide with things that are happening to him in the real world, for lack of a better term. And I think like what it looks on the cover to me, you can kind of see some of the style change, like just to give you a better view. If you can see, not really that glare on there. Well, I think it's hard to say what this is going for. I think it looks a little bit like Frank Miller's Superman from his Batman series, Dark Knight Returns, which was a notably dark. Like that was one of the first books that's cited of ushering in the darker age of comics is Dark Knight Returns. Sorry. And so I think he's kind of...
Did you say Dark Knight Strikes Back?
No, that's a different book. Dark Knight Strikes Again.
Oh, this Strikes Back. It's a whole different thing.
It is a different thing.
Return of the Dark Knight.
But there's a lot of different Dark Knights and Returns and striking going on. But so I think he's trying to evoke that a little bit, because that was famously like a darker era, and Superman was also kind of presented in a not so bright light kind of way. It was darker. He was anyway. So I have to reluctantly say it's a good book. It looks great
because of the art.
Excellent, yes, because of the art. Excellent storytelling.
Oh, so the story is good too.
Yeah, no,
it's not just the art that's getting
correct.
You.
It's a good story, but I think that a good artist is part of what makes it a good story, like how the story unfolds in the art. Yeah. It's not just the idea of like this happens, then this happens, then this happens. Anybody can come up with ideas. It's the execution of the ideas and how it unfolds in the art. And I think Tom Riley is just a master at that, and I reluctantly really liked it. I will say
you're angry that you.
I'm mad. I'm mad about it because I don't want to buy any tie-ins to this series, but it's pretty good. It's 2 issues, so thankfully there's no more than that. So this was only part 1 of a 2-part story, but it had a nice little. I'm not going to show it, but there was a nice little like final page kind of plot twist of where the next issue is going to go. So I guess I'm gonna be getting Night Terror Superman, but that's the only one.
And that's it.
We'll see. Maybe Abby can convince me otherwise.
Okay. Looks cool.
Yeah, one other book I want to talk about briefly. I don't want to spend too much time on it. I talked about issue 1 when it came out, Wild's End. This, I gotta say, my favorite book of the week. I love this comic. It's a talking animal comic. I do love talking animals.
You like a talking animal.
I do. It's kind of this book is basically like they advertise it as a mix of where the Wind in the Willows and the God dang it, the H.G. Wells alien invasion movie, War of the Worlds.
Oh, War of the Worlds.
So there's too many W's.
And
Wind in the Willows. Wind in the War of the World
Wind
Willows.
in the War of the Worlds.
Wild's End. So the first issue, this issue sees a lot more action than the first issue. The first issue, I really loved the first issue because it was just wonderful character
I remember
drama.
talking about it.
And it's just these characters. They're sailors. They're all out. They go out to sea to fish.
Dan Abnett.
Yes.
He writes a bunch of stuff for Black Library.
Yes, he does. He's a good writer.
That's a name I know.
Yeah, he's been around.
Warhammer novels. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's done a lot of stuff. And this, at first, I felt like this was a pretty lighthearted story because it's just character drama. So these characters, you kind of get to know them. They're out on the boat. They all have their little personal relationship things. You know, they don't all like each other. And some are worried about the captain. He's kind of old and losing it, and they don't know where they're going to go. And then they pull into dock, and everybody's just gone. And it's a mystery. It's like a ghost town. And then they find a pair of shoes, and they're like, oh. And then the shock horror of it is that they find a pair of feet inside the shoes.
Oh, okay.
And they recognize the shoes, so they're like,
that'll
what's
happen.
Yeah. And so they're like, what's going on? So this issue, they're investigating this ghost town. Yeah. And they find, I don't want to spoil too much about it, but this is where action starts happening. They find some people in the town. Something's a little weird. Looks like there's some alien abduction stuff going on.
Nice. Yeah.
And then there's some action that happens. It's just really great. I'm telling you right now,
good.
Best book that came out this week. And there's a lot of good stuff that came out this week.
Right.
I don't know. Best is maybe inappropriate. My favorite.
Your highest recommendation.
This is what,
Yeah,
if you like reading stories about characters, this is a book for you.
Character-driven animal stories with aliens.
That's right. Right. There was I will say there was the final page. I was a little shook. It went somewhere I didn't expect it to go.
You got shook.
Like I said, the first issue was pretty lighthearted. I thought, like a little creepy and macabre.
Sure, yeah.
You know, but it's a talking animal, so you're kind of lulled into this false sense of security, like it's a kid's book. You know, like talking animals.
Yeah.
And the art is really clean. And then there was
everything changes.
Everything changes. There was something shocking. I just did not see. It was really good. I love it. Good book. Highly recommend.
You need a good surprise every once in a while.
All right. Coming up next. Dan, you know me as somebody who.
Yeah.
Would you say that I hold strong opinions about things?
You might.
You might.
Yes.
Okay. So
one or two opinions.
I read this book because I like Blade is a good character.
Yeah.
It's a new #1. I love the movie.
Yeah.
It's not great, but
Classic of our time.
Yes, exactly.
And when I say our time, I mean old people like us.
That's right. You got to appreciate it.
Yes.
So this.
Oh boy, you're sighing.
I'm sighing a lot.
You're doing a heavy sigh.
This might be the ugliest comic I've seen in a long time.
Ugliest
comic.
No.
And I say that I don't like saying stuff like that because I know that I understand artists. I know a lot of work goes into this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But like
to just trash it.
So I don't like trashing it, but there's something going on with the colors in this book. They're going for a style. They're going for this like washed out cinematic look.
I see it.
And the effect is that the book just looks really muddy. Like I'm trying to.
It's hard to.
It's hard to see because there's like a little bit of a glare there, but like you just can't really get a good eye for what's happening on this panel. It all just blurs together, and I have to assume a lot of it is done on purpose. It's all this like swaths of monochromatic colors to create like mood and atmosphere, like you might see in a movie. It just does not work on this comic page. I'm shocked. I'm just really shocked at how like much I disliked it. And that's one of my biggest complaints about Marvel books is I do not often like their coloring because I think that computer coloring, it's just easy to get really lazy with it, and I think that's the case in this book. Again, like I said, it could
very
be
dark.
it could be a stylistic choice, and maybe it's just a problem of like somebody had the contrast turned down too low on the pages
When
and,
they were putting
you
it
know,
together.
But like even these pages that are brighter,
Yeah.
like it's still
It's like kind of hazy
it's all
looking.
it's muddy. Like you just
Yeah.
can't see the images. Like if you're like don't have the book right up to your face, if you're pulled away, like it's hard to tell what's going on. And when you can't tell what's happening in the panel of a comic book,
Yeah, what's the
you
point?
got a problem. I mean, just look at it like just like this advertisement for a different book next to this page, full page
Yeah.
splash.
How much more
like,
dynamic
Look at how that
and bright.
pops.
Yeah.
You know, like that's something that you can read in a story and you can see what's happening. This I was shocked. So I don't like to trash stuff, but I'm only saying this because I
Not
was
publicly.
just not publicly. No, that's correct. Privately, I'll go back and forth about anything. But I'm legitimately shocked.
Yeah, it's an interest. It's
I thought I was
interesting.
going to read this and I was going to say the same thing that I said about Void Rivals. It's fine. It's not, it's whatever. But no, this is not whatever. This is like I can't even. It's hard to even explain the story. There's a story there.
Yeah.
And I will here.
It's hard to follow.
The story is fine. It's your basic like the main character. It's set up like Terminator. There's the main character. She's this young woman. Some vampires are trying to kill her. Blade shows up and
Blade's
saves
gotta
her,
save her.
and he's like, "Come with me if you want to live."
Yeah.
And so I did think it was very, very generic, but a perfectly fine setup for your comic books. Have been ripping off ideas.
Oh,
forever.
sure. I mean, is
So-
there any new ideas
Right,
at all?
exactly.
Not really.
Wow. It's fine. I was just shocked at the look of it. Like it's just if you like Blade, if you like vampire stuff, I'm sure you're gonna like it. And maybe the next issues they'll clean it up a little so that you can actually see what's going on. But I was shook. You know, you thought I was shook from the previous issue. I'm genuinely shook by this.
The art just seems kind of like hazy. Everything seemed blurry, even the sharp lines.
Right, even that's what I'm saying. You can't read the line work. Like it just muddies
It's
over
wild.
everything. So I'm sure the black and white pages, like the original art, look great to this. So this is not. I don't even want to say artist names because I don't want to like dog on them or anything. I'm sure the original pages looked great. Like you can actually see the figures and the line work, and like there's some nice for a lot of these talking head panels. Like it's a nice creative layout for. It's not just the same head shot over and over. Like the camera's moving around a little bit. So like this artist knows how to lay out a page. It's just the colorist is just absolutely ruining it. And I don't even necessarily want to blame it on the colorist because that's something that for the longest time I know Marvel has had a heavy hand in the coloring. Like they've actually, I think they prioritize coloring over penciling sometimes because the coloring kind of creates the overall house style for Marvel. Like that's really what makes it the house style is the coloring. And so I don't know what happened with this issue, but I was
not happy.
I was not pleased with it. And you don't hear me say that often on this show.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe every episode you hear me say that.
Nice.
But
amazing.
So we're gonna wash that.
What's this?
We're gonna wash that blade out of our mouths.
We're gonna wash it out of our mouths with vicious circle.
A vicious circle.
That looks badass.
Dude, if I haven't told you to read issue 1, you got to read issue 1. This is issue 2. The reason you haven't heard about this before is because issue 1 came out last December, 7 months ago.
Wow.
But I think you'll understand why when you see some of the art. This is illustrated by Lee Bermejo, who's a very famous cover artist and comic book artist himself. He does a lot of cover art for Marvel and DC, or for DC mostly. But he does this. Look at this lush,
like realistic.
Yeah. So a lot of like painted work in this, but I just want to flip to show you. He does my favorite thing, which is he utilizes different styles of artwork. So you can kind of see, that's a little, but so there you go. So now there's some like standard comic book.
All same artists.
Like all the same artists. Lee Bermejo. The dude is just a monster. So this story, it's pretty, it's a little surreal and it's hard to follow because it's a time travel story. And so it basically is telling the story of these two characters, the two main characters. They're like somehow linked to each other where they're traveling through time together and they're trying to kill each other. And they're in this like eternal war.
Like Highlander.
Yes, it's kind of similar. But the catch is every time they murder somebody else, they both shift to a different time period in time. So they're like transferring through time, and it's hard to tell like what either of their motives are. That's all kind of building into the third and final issue, which hopefully won't take 7 months to come out. But if it does, I understand why, because it's actually one of the most beautiful looking comics I've ever seen.
I mean, that cover alone.
Yeah, the cover alone is just
crazy.
great. And so this is definitely a book you should be on the lookout for. It's violent. It's action. It's just beautiful. It's got dinosaurs in it. That's why I picked up the first issue. It has dinosaurs in it.
Sold.
Right. But then it's also got like superhero stuff. There's like spy action.
Yeah.
The main character is this black guy, and he ends up in 1950 America, where he tries.
Oh,
yes,
okay,
exactly.
yeah. So there's a rough time,
there's like a heavy subject matter.
Yeah,
and
sure.
So,
yeah,
but
yeah.
he
Race
tries
relations
to. Yes.
in the United States in the 50s.
Exactly.
Not a great place for him to be.
But he tries to make it work there because it's better than where he was previously.
Right.
Where he's like,
somewhere even
he's
worse.
he's like, okay, let's. He goes, I think I can make this work.
Wow.
It's really good. I just read this book. It's great.
Just go get it.
I would almost pick this as the best book that's going to come out this week, but I just,
My only problem with this book.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna know.
I know exactly
you know what I'm
what you're
gonna
going to say.
This is a big book.
You know what?
This is.
This is one of those occasions where
frustrating.
I think the art is
It
just
it
so
requires
big.
it to be bigger.
requires a big. Yes.
Maybe I'll go along with that. But,
Yeah, yeah.
Man, come on. Where am I gonna put that?
Look at that.
I have to buy another box,
Just-
especially for that size book.
Wait until the hardcover comes out, and
Right, yeah.
that'll look really nice
Coffee
on a
table.
bookshelf. Yeah, coffee table. No, it's a good book. If you haven't heard it, this is also, I should say, it's written by Mattson Tomlin, who he is the at least co-writer of the Batman movie with Robert Pattinson that
okay.
came out, and he also wrote a Batman book that came out I think 2 years ago.
Didn't see the new Batman.
I don't have much else to say on it. I don't have 3 hours to go into detail.
You ever go to watch a movie and then you look to see how long the movie is, and then you go, "Oh, I can't."
I'm like, never
There's
mind.
no way.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
watching this. Like,
It's
oh, I might watch this movie. Oh, it's 3 hours, 4 hours long. Justice League cut.
Right.
Whatever.
Nah. I'm a grown man. I got stuff to do.
Yeah, I'll
you know?
be asleep.
Exactly. I'm gonna pass out.
Yikes.
So, but yeah, that's
Vicious Circle.
good book.
Get it.
Highly recommend it. All right, so now we're gonna go in the opposite direction.
Okay.
I don't know how much of this we want to show. So we went with a big book. Now we're going with a small book.
Okay.
This book is called. You can read it.
Yep.
Die Horny.
Die Horny.
And this is definitely also not for kids.
Been known to happen.
You know what? It has to have happened a few times throughout history. I picked this up randomly, mostly just because of the name, and it has a giant lady on it with a tiny little man.
Take a look at this real quick.
So this book is for fans of Power Rangers and old pervy anime, I think is the way you could put it. Just like the typical, for those of you that are watching anime and you see that scene where the guy character has the blood spurt out his nose, that's what this book is. But it's like
It's not too risky.
No, it's not actually too risque. It's not it doesn't need to be shrink wrapped.
Yeah.
And it's also not Japanese. This is an American creator, Rebecca Mock, but she's definitely doing it in a anime style.
Yeah.
There's no nudity or anything.
The artwork is fun.
Yeah, and it's definitely like evoking that era, that fun anime. Like it rides the line on the subject matter, but it's not like crass with the visuals. I think that's
Awesome.
key.
Yeah.
But it's basically the main story is this monster queen who came to Earth to enslave humanity and then fell in love with
That'll happen.
a tiny little human man, and she decided to retire her quest to conquer humanity and just get married, and they're on their way to a honeymoon. And then
Okay.
they meet up with some other monsters and humans, and they have some action and some drama.
That makes sense.
And it's lighthearted comedy action. There's a lot of what would you call it? There's a lot of like the subject matter revolves around a lot of innuendo, some fetish stuff,
Okay.
kinks, if you
Okay.
will. I think that's the lingo that the kids use, all in a positive light.
That's good.
I asked our coworker Celeste to read this because I thought she might like it, and she said she loved it.
Really?
So
Okay.
she highly recommends this book. She said it's exactly the type of thing she loves, just right up her alley. Just like perverted Power Rangers anime. It's like that's her thing. She told me.
I guess.
She-
I just think it's like an interesting take when you're like, you might like this
Yeah.
book. It's kind of perverted, but in a lighthearted way.
what is that supposed
What
to
does that mean about any of this?
You know, I do. So I will say I do think that this kind of like it's Rebecca Mock definitely has a very feminine approach
Sure.
to the whole thing. So her voice is as obviously it's her book.
Yeah.
And so I do think it's something that back in my day we used to call them otaku, not weeb. Weeb is a new invention of the internet, but otaku, like old girls that were in anime club. I think they'll really enjoy this book. I don't have much else to say on it.
Yeah.
I thought it was good. It felt like it's the first book in a series. I assume it says volume 2 coming, but it felt like it's like chapter 7 in an ongoing story. There's
a lot
it's like
going on.
front loaded with like all this stuff has happened, and it sort of felt like you were reading a recap of like the previous 5 years of story, but I don't think that's the case. I think this is it just starts with the ridiculous premise, which I kind of appreciate.
Jumps right in.
Yeah, I'm glad that it's not like a One Piece where it takes like 10 years to get to the good part, where everybody's like, just watch the first 2,000 episodes and then it gets really good.
And then it's amazing.
Yeah, I don't got time for
No one's
that.
got time for that.
All right,
All right.
final book
Read it.
I want to talk about today. I always ask a coworker to pick out a book. I asked our friend Jacob, and he picked out Scrapper because it has dogs on the cover.
Yeah, we like dogs.
This is an all-ages superhero dog book. It is written, or it's created by Cliff Bleszinski, who's a name that I'm not super familiar with, but it turns out he's the guy that created the video game Fortnite.
Okay.
And so this definitely is
Thanks a lot,
something.
Cliff.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Well, I have a lot of problems with that, but none of them I'm going to go into on the stream here. No, it's a pretty standard.
animation.
Yeah,
the
the
artwork.
art,
I mean,
the art is really nice. It's drawn by Sandy Jarrell, who is somebody that I'm not familiar with, but it looks really good. Nice, clean, colorful artwork. You can see what's happening on the page, which is always a plus in a comic book.
we like that.
The talking dogs are in it. It's kind of the setting feels very much like a video game setting. It's I don't know what you call it, dystopian, post-apocalyptic. Like it's a domed city,
Oh, sure.
and there's like one corporation that controls everything, and the dogs are fighting to protect people.
Like Disney.
Like exactly. It feels very much like it's a bit of a shot at that. There's but the main character is two talking dogs, maybe one talking dog. It's basically like RoboCop, except for
Okay.
kids, and instead of a robot man, it's a talking dog.
Okay.
And it's your basic setup. It goes like it
Just
doesn't
not
get
really sure about that analogy.
So basically, the main character is this dog who has some kind of like he has like amnesia. He doesn't know where he's from, but he's got this collar, and he exhibits some kind of like weird supernatural powers at one point. And so he probably came from some special, maybe an experiment, maybe from the one corporation that controls everything. Maybe we'll see where it goes.
Your move, creep.
Yes, exactly. I mean, RoboCop is my favorite movie, so that's high praise.
That's your favorite
like-
movie?
maybe. I
What?
could watch
That's
that.
awesome.
I could watch that movie on repeat forever.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yes.
Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
Buy that for $1.
Yes, exactly. But there's rats in it. I like rats.
We like rats.
The rats are all kind of jerks.
I mean, rats are jerks.
Rats are jerks. They bite you. Not always. But yeah, it's a good book. Definitely something that's geared for all ages. I think that kids will like it if you like pets, if you like animals, and if you like super-powered dogs. You will like this book.
I think I like all those
Yeah,
things.
yeah, I know. Like, what's not to like about that? Really.
Superpowered dogs?
Yeah. Mhm.
Sign me up.
But
Awesome.
I should also say it is co-written by Alex DeCampi, who is a writer who's been in the industry for a long time. That's kind of what actually drew me to it, because at first I was like, "Yeah, they made Fortnite? Are you kidding me?" But then he like took the idea and handed it off to Alex DeCampi,
Sure.
and she's actually a really good writer. She's done a lot of books, so I think that's really what is makes it into like holding it together. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because like yeah.
Perfection.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you
Yeah,
go.
so that's it.
That's books.
I think
Some books.
yeah, some books, most of them I liked, for the most part. Mostly. I don't know. I got nothing else. What do you got for me, Dan?
I got nothing. I'm just glad we got some books to check out, and sad about Blade.
Yeah.
Die horny, sure.
I mean, I can think of worse ways to die.
Yeah. So awesome. That's the preview. Tomorrow, go buy your comic books. Come by our store. If you don't buy them here, buy them somewhere, but just buy some comic books. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. Check them out, and you're going to find something you're going to like. You're going to be like, why haven't I been reading comics this whole time?
Absolutely.
All right. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
When we have more books to review.
Yeah.
To preview.
Preview and
That's
review.
right.
It's a little pre-review.
We'll preview them by reviewing them.
Yes.